Yeah, I didn't really like prepare a whole lot of questions or anything. I mean, like, it depends. Every podcast is different. Like, sometimes I have like a whole bunch of different questions, and then other times I kind of just like wing it. You're pretty good, I think, at carrying a conversation, probably better than me. So if this podcast, ends up sucking, it's your fault. All right. So,
Fair enough. I understand that completely.
all right. So let me introduce you real quick. I always say your name wrong. I just realized that like 2 days ago. I've always said like Archduke, and it's Archduke Redcat. I'm dumb. AKA Chase Croft, Chase FQ on TikTok. I'll drop a link in the description. You also, so okay, I know you from the battle rap community. And apart from being an incredible battler, one of my favorites, if not my favorite, I've said this before. You're incredibly good at like rapping, but then you also have this like really smooth delivery that I think it's hard to like nobody else can that I see really kind of has that same style, and it's uniquely you. But there's a bad unique and a good unique, and you have a very good unique, right? There are definitely people out there who I can say like they're unique, but like it doesn't sound good, and like the way you do it, I think really sounds good. And I always think about like one in particular. You had like a Lottie Dottie scheme or something. I don't remember what the battle was, but it's just like the way you pull it off. It feels so effortless and smooth, and it's just like crazy. But I won't get too far into that, but an incredible battler, but also really, really good at freestyling as well. Did you? I guess maybe I'll start there. Did you start with like freestyling, or did you kind of get into like written battles, or did you just kind of what like the era that you came up in wasn't really freestyle battles, right? So where did you like really kind of get into freestyling as opposed to like written battles?
Well, I would say battle rap was my like final foray as far as rapping goes. I was a backpack rapper for years. I started rapping in 2015, 16, on tracks and on Cyphers and stuff like that. Written stuff though, of course, back then. I want to say in ninth grade when I took it seriously. So I think that's 2016. And so I had done backpack rapping for a very long time. I got familiar with battle rap in late high school, and I watched, of course, Written Leagues. You're right. I didn't come up through the freestyle era, and I didn't watch freestyle battles. I've never seen 8 Mile. I still haven't seen 8 Mile. Like I'm familiar.
It was a good movie, man. I don't know. It's like
No, I want to see it. I want to see it. I should know.
what is limiting you? Like you got it probably streaming free right now somewhere. Like I feel like
When I first wanted to watch 8 Mile, it wasn't streaming anywhere. I'm sure it's somewhere now.
yeah, I don't know.
But when I first went to
Did you
go,
ever see Bodied?
I saw Bodied a bunch of times. I saw it like 4 times in theaters.
Okay. I would argue it's hard to compare, but I would argue that maybe Bodied is actually better than 8 Mile. That's my opinion. But it's only because it better, I think, reflects, battle rap today, whereas 8 Mile was just like it gave people a perception of battle rap that I think, isn't entirely accurate to today's,
Yeah.
perception of it. But yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
Definitely watch that though.
I had to recently explain that battle rap is different now. You know how because I was just explaining to someone that I was just at a battle and they have the 8 Mile conception. I was like, this is not freestyle on a beat. This is acapella off a beat.
Yeah.
But that is all to say. I started off of written stuff. I became good at freestyling because there was a club at NYU called Rhymes with a Z, and that was the freestyle rap club at NYU. And I started to show up regularly at that, and I thought freestyling was pretty limited until I saw those guys do it, and they were saying some of the craziest punchlines I had ever heard back to back off of what was just said, and I was like, oh, you can get crazy at this.
Mhm.
Got it. And so I went to that club for the first time in 2019, and ever since then I freestyle like. I've been freestyling every week at that club, like every Friday at that club.
So they're still going?
We changed the name. It's called City Litter now.
Okay.
Because all the people who were NYU either graduated or stopped showing up, and the new people we got, because we rap outside in public. We would just rap in Washington Square Park in Manhattan, and outdoors anybody could join. And we moved it to Astor Place because the park rangers don't rock with speakers. So we moved to Astor Place, but again, we're in public. So a lot of the new additions to the crew had never been to NYU. So it didn't make sense to keep calling it an NYU club because nobody in the club was at NYU anymore.
Right.
Um, so we made our own name, City Litter, and we host that cipher from 5 to 8 every Friday. And so I'm still rapping with the same crew, different members, different people, but ultimately I've been doing the same thing. But it's honed the blade, so to speak. I became a battle rapper completely separate from rapping and freestyling.
Just for reference, can anybody just pop up there and just kind of get involved, or?
Anybody.
All right, cool. You also had a writing credit, I think, on Epic Rap Battles of History. What was that process like? Because I have a hard time imagining it. Like, do you like email in some bars, or do you just like get together with a group of writers, or how does that work?
Yeah, so a bunch of battle rappers were tapped to help write some of the earliest ones of the most recent season. Frack is the one who hit me up directly. He was like, "Hey, I pitched you to the guys. Give me your best TikTok." I sent them the battle with the stapler. They liked it. So I was added to the team. And so the way it ended up working was we had like a bunch of battle rappers. We split it in half. So half of us did one battle and half of us did another. And because my last name is Croft, I was like, I want the Lara Croft one. Like, give me that one.
Right.
And so I got to be on that team. It was me, Marv One, My Verse, Random, and I think two other people. And we all had a Google Doc together where we just threw ideas, spaghetti at the wall kind of thing. And then we had a couple Zoom meetings to talk about like how we would say it, how we would want it said, or like where we should sort of brainstorm what directions we should look. So we would meet up like twice a week over Zoom and talk about, direction and ideas and, who wants to attack more of the Indiana Jones side, who wants to see if we could get more out of the Tomb Raider side. And then, we would submit like, I don't want to say like super rough, but a decently rough thing. Cause of course, Nice Peter and Epic Lloyd, they're both rappers themselves. So they would just like, we would give them more than they needed. And then they would like trim it down, I think with Random and Frack as well, sort of in that trimming process. But yeah, that's what it ended up looking like. A big Google Doc with every idea ever that got slowly condensed.
Word. That's fire. I mean, like, do you ever like, do you like stop and think like, damn, I did that? Like, I mean, I don't know if you like, did you grow up ever watching those? I mean, I watched a couple of them. I won't say I like, binge watched a ton of them, but it just, it seems like a surreal experience, I think, to me.
Yeah, I watched that stuff religiously. I loved Epic Rap Battles of History. I remember the day my friend came in and showed us, like it had just come out at the time. He came into school, first thing he showed us Chuck Norris versus Abe Lincoln. And that was a game changer. And then he said, it's like, yeah, they have 3 other ones. So we watched the other 3 at the time, which were like John Lennon and Bill O'Reilly, Hitler and Vader, and whatever the third one is. I can't remember right now. But yeah, I watched them religiously since then. Me and all my friends had them darn near memorized. I have a video from when we were very young. I just gotten a flip video camera, and Let's Playing wasn't a hot thing, but I still wanted to do it because I thought it would be funny. So I put at a friend's birthday, I put the flip video under the TV, filming us while we're playing Halo. Half the video is us singing Stephen Hawking versus Albert Einstein. Like half just us saying there are 10 million, like it's just that, and rapping the whole thing. So yeah, it was a really big deal. And I've seen some of my friends from middle school and high school, and they come up to me, they're like, dude, you wrote for that? Like, that's crazy. We like, that's crazy that we used to watch that together and now you're a part of it. I was like, yeah, it's weird. It's super weird.
Word. So how did that start? I mean, I know you said Frack, I guess, introduced you to it, but like, how did Frack find you? Is that through iBattle, or I know you're also kind of big on TikTok too. I'll go on to my next question after you answer that one.
So interestingly enough, I knew Frack before I was a battle rapper.
Okay.
As an NYU student, okay, before even getting into the NYU thing, I was a huge backpack nerd. I loved backpack rappers. I loved underground rap, and I thought I wanted to just give people more of a platform, get more of my friends' voices out there because I thought they were really talented. So what I would do is I would go in GarageBand or Logic, and I would like take my friend's tracks, which I bought, and I would like make half an hour long mixes of these underground rap songs, and I would put them on Mixcloud. I think I only did 3 before I tired out, but you know that's still over an hour of their music, you know, and every song's like 2 minutes, so I did a darn good job. But that's how I ended up meeting Eddie I, because I went to see the Source and Red Flag, and Eddie I was just happened to be at the event. I don't think he battled there, but I went up and talked to him. I was like, hey, dude, I put your music, I put your song "The Mask" in one of my playlists, and I shared it with everybody I could. You know, like I love your stuff. But in the same vein, in a class at NYU, I was showing some of the rappers in that class, because it was a class called Poets and Poetry, Footsteps to Hip Hop. So we just talked about how poetry leading up into hip hop was this sort of, there were a lot of revolutionary texts throughout Black art, Black American art. And so in that class, I turned my laptop over. I'm like, hey, check out this mix. And if you guys have songs you're proud of, send them to me. I'll put them in this mix. I'll try to send it as far as I can. And my man Afterthought saw the second song was by Frack. He was like, you know Frack? I was like, I love Frack. He was like, you want to do a song with Frack? I was like, I'd love to do a song with Frack. And then so within the same year, you know, me and Afterthought become close friends. He shows up to NYU Rhymes. We freestyle together a bunch. But Afterthought gets me a song called Family First Freestyle, and the features are me and Frack. And I got to co-produce the beat with him. This is all to say Afterthought's one of the greatest people alive. He's an incredible rapper. He has a band called the Top Chefs Band, but he also has a group called Family Not a Group, one of the greatest things to come out of the Bay Area. It's an amazing hip hop collective of like 17 to 20 something people. But yeah, meeting Afterthought introduced me to Frack. We got to do a song together. I become a battle rapper, yada yada. Time goes by. Me and Frack are homies. You know, that's the main takeaway. Me and Frack are good friends.
Word. All right, that's fire. And so then how did you get into doing like the TikTok videos and stuff? And more so, like, where did you get the idea, like, oh, I'm gonna start battle rapping like random objects in my house? Where were you just like, were you looking at a potato and you're like, I want smoke, like that? Like, where did that idea come from?
I wish I could remember the specifics. I do know that before I was a battle rapper, I loved battle rap, and I would say battle stuff throughout the house. You know, I would. And in high school, we used to do this thing called 2 bars, where we would, or 4 bars, depending on how we felt, we would do either one. But we would just do, you know, 2 or 4 bars where we freestyled and then exaggerated as if we were in a like actual rap battle, you know, because I had just put all my friends onto battle rap, and, you know, we were all hooked on that idea, seeing people react and seeing how much the crowd goes crazy to a rap battle. We were enthralled by that stuff. And so, fast forward, I guess. Wait, no, I forgot the entire question. Say the question again. I totally lost where I was.
No, I was just like, how did you get the idea to like battle objects?
Right. So, in the same vein of doing 2 bars and 4 bars, we would do it in person usually, but sometimes we would have to do it over Snapchat because we weren't at school or whatever. And then doing those, I would do like themed based on whatever I saw, you know, because I have a camera now. It's like I can point stuff out, do observational jokes. So I used to do like regular observational, you know, freestyles in a battle format. And then I was telling a friend about this. He was like, yo, if you did that, people would like it. You know what I mean? Like, if you record it, people would like it. And I was like, you know, like I had already tried to go viral on TikTok doing other stupid stuff. And I had gotten viral once just for talking about how old my great grandmother got to be. But that's besides the point. But eventually there was just one day where I was playing video games and I was losing constantly. I was switching games and I was still losing. I got frustrated. I gave up. I just sat in my kitchen and that was it. And I saw the lemon in front of me. I was like, you know what? Whatever. Let's do it. Let's go for it. I have bars. I thought of the first line I came up with was you know, if your homies are around, in vitamin C. And I was like, okay, vitamin C, lemon, good joke. And then I was like, lemonade, okay, A to lemon, there's a bar there, blah, blah, blah. So like I had like 3 good bars about the lemon. I recorded it, and the rest is history, you know what I'm saying? That's sort of where it came about. I had done it a little bit here and there, but I finally just sat down and did it, I guess.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think immediately as you started answering that question, I started thinking to myself about like, I guess Supernatural would like go into the grocery store and he would be like kind of freestyling about like random things. He'll see like, salad and just start, freestyling off of that word or something. So like in that, frame, it's not that far of a distance to think, okay, I'm already rapping about this stuff. Let me come up with punchlines and then like maybe just direct it at that actual object. So,
Yeah,
um,
and my verse and Roan both had done it prior. I had seen Roan battle like a lamp on Twitter like early in lockdown, or maybe even before lockdown. And I knew my verse, loved to just rap about. She would go to the supermarket and start rapping about everything she saw in the aisles. And
right.
I thought that stuff was cool. I was like, rap is so fun, So I threw my hat in the ring, I suppose.
Word. So I guess I wanted to go back a little bit, kind of figure out more about you and like kind of how you grew up and everything. I know a little bit about your family, just from watching other interviews. So I guess I'll let you kind of tell the story.
Sure. I don't know how much of a story you want, but I can give
I
you.
mean, it's up to you. I mean, as much or like less. I mean, it's a casual conversation, honestly. So run with it.
um, Well, I guess it's worth noting that my mom is a political cartoonist. She's Barbara Brandon Croft, the creator of Where I'm Coming From, a comic strip that ran in the 1980s and 90s, all the way up to 2005, actually, I think. And she still makes them these days, but it's non-syndicated. And my dad is a career musician. He's a jazz musician and R&B musician. He plays vibraphone, like primarily, but he's also a vocalist, keyboardist, harmonica player, guitarist, bassist, drummer, whatever you need. You know what I mean? Um, and so that's kind of what the household is. It's an artful household. It's a whole bunch of art, and I rap, I beatbox. I've taken years of dance.
Was your grandfather also an artist too, or
My granddad on both sides, they were
oh,
both
both sides?
artists. My granddad on my dad's side was a painter. That wasn't his career, but he was very capable, and we have a painting of his in the hallway. And my granddad on my mom's side is also a political cartoonist, just like my mom is. They're both pioneer black cartoonists in their lane. My granddad on my mom's side, Brumsick Barrington Jr., he did a comic strip called Luther, which was about the black kid experience in America. And my mom did Where I'm Coming From, which was the black woman's experience in America, primarily. Yeah.
Did you ever feel like you wanted to go in that lane, or just you wanted to do your own thing? How are you at drawing? Do you have that talent?
I'm a decent observational drawer. I can't really draw what I see in my head though. Even if I come up with a character, a cartoon in my head, it's not going to translate to the page. I don't have it like that. I could draw what I see decently well, but and I definitely tried to draw comic strips when I was in like fourth grade or something, but was not for me. I didn't have the diligence. I was more naturally inclined towards music and dance and other arts, so I was
Right.
just like, "Hey, you win some, you lose some."
I mean, where was your? I mean, I assume your family was pretty, supportive of like you embracing like different arts and stuff. Whether that be music or breakdancing or other things. So I mean, like, what was that environment like growing up? Like, what like I I I I I ask, I think, because like maybe I feel like I had a different environment, and like like sometimes I think about like and there's always every family is different, but like I feel like some perspectives of like art in general are very like negative, and they're just like, well, don't do that, you're not going to make any money, you're going to you need to focus on there are some families that are like, oh, you need to go be a doctor and you need to be successful at doing this thing, and so people have their own independent like visions of what success is, or but it rarely ever like equals up to happiness, and this might start getting, I don't want to go too far I guess into this. I do want to come back to it because this does like kind of go into what I wanted to ask later, but we haven't really gotten too far into talking about you, but we can go whatever way with it.
um, Not sure if there was a question there, but I can speak
Yeah, I
to.
mean, just like, I'm like, what was that like growing up, like in an environment like I mean, did you feel like, did you, I mean, I don't know, it's hard for me to, I don't know the right question because I didn't experience it, and I know there's a question there that has value where it's just like but I don't know what the right words are.
Sure. I would say it was I feel like I got a little bit of every possible experience you could have in terms of a household that is like of the arts entirely, like two artists raising an artist. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because like on one hand, my parents were very supportive. They of course they chased their dreams and they got it. So of course they would want me to pursue the same thing. But there's also a wariness. You know what I'm saying? Because my mom, she had to she didn't have to retire per se, but she had to switch because newspapers were falling out of favor, comic strips were falling out of favor. So then she had a magazine desk job for years after that. And my dad, he's been a career musician the whole time. He's had odd jobs here and there as well. He's had a lot of teaching positions and stuff like that. But my dad was signed to Columbia Records back in the day as a musician. And I think because of my dad's experience with the music industry, he definitely was like a little bit wary about the fact that I also wanted to do music. He was like, hey,
Right.
maybe not. The music industry is not making music. That's not the same thing. So there was support. There was very firm warnings, and very firm like, if you don't want to do this, that's totally a good thing. You know what I mean? It wasn't like don't do it. It was more like a, hey, understand this sucks.
Yeah.
So I did get a bit of the pushback and the support from the family, but I think in a weird way we were in a uniquely supportive time, because being in fourth grade to start the first of two terms of a first black president, this was the most like a black person can theoretically do anything time of all time. That's like
Right.
that was the
How old were you like when Obama first got elected?
he was inaugurated. I was 10.
Okay. Yeah, I was eight. I was at least 18 or 19 because I know I voted, but like I can't remember exactly how old I was. But yeah, that was the first election I was able to vote in. And like, yeah, that you can go ahead and your perspective of it. I mean, my perspective of it as a white guy is just like, I mean, I definitely saw like the fact that it was groundbreaking in the sense that it had never been done before, but I don't necessarily feel like I had like the relation of like what it meant to be a black person and to be able to see that.
Yeah, because I mean, prior as a joke, a lot of people, let's say I was like a pretty smart kid, right? I was a decently gifted kid. I was an intelligent kid. A lot of people would be like, "Oh, he's going to be the president one day," and of course, that's like a joke. But once Obama did it, it was like, oh snap! We aren't barred from that office. It's not impossible. Like that was sort of like the top of the mountain. You know what I mean? It's like if you can reach that, you can reach anything else. You know what I mean? And I mean, there's a little bit of naivety there. There's a little bit of like, hope was in the air back then. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it was very easy for our family to be supportive for, in like 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. You know what I mean? Like that was hope was the feeling. Change was the feeling, right? That was his whole campaign. And it resonated with a lot of Black Americans, I believe. And I think that helped with the sort of notion of like you can be anything, because like my mom was always telling me like her dad did not say that to her. He was like, you can do a lot, but they're gonna try and stop. This is not the world is not built for you to do anything you want. You're gonna have to try really hard and things will be not the best. But my mom,
Which is kind of wild though, because like your mom did break her own glass ceilings, right? So I mean, not for nothing. I mean, like even if she didn't get that that whatever affirmation or whatever, she still like seemed to do it regardless, whatever motivated her to do that.
yeah, and I mean, it's not like my granddad was like, let's kill your dreams. It was more like, I'm going to help you every step of the way. I just know how much harder it's going to be. You know what I mean? It was more,
Right, and that's valid, right? Like,
but after Obama, it was like, my mom felt very comfortable saying, you can do anything. You know what I mean? It's like, you literally can.
well, I mean, so then there was also the backlash of that, though. I think, I think we wouldn't have a Trump presidency if we didn't have an Obama presidency, because there was definitely just a pushback of like, I think it just came down to the fact that like you have people. I hesitate to say the word Christian, but I just like, because there's so much of the population in America that is Christian, and like I'm not anti-Christian. Like I know people, like one of my earlier mentors, like that helped me through a lot of things when I was growing up, was very heavily religious, and so I think that Christianity is good in a lot of people's lives. I'm just not religious. I mean, I'm more like I'm basically agnostic, but close enough to atheism that it's it doesn't really make a difference. But like at the same time, there is also this very rigid structure of like there's a rigid group of people who adhere to a specific form of Christianity that I think have an idea of what the world is supposed to look like, and that also stems from like white supremacy. I mean, the KKK was originally founded in the idea of like when they were founded, they were a Christian group, like so it's like people that use Christianity for bad things and evil things have historically just done like almost every terrible thing in the history of like even if you look at fucking Manifest Destiny, again, use Christianity to justify why we're going to wipe out every Native American in America. Like, use Christianity to justify, like, why we're, enslaving black people. And use Christianity and the Bible, they, cherry pick different passages from the book in order to give it to slaves and basically say, like, this is why you should be subservient. And this is the same demographic of people that were empowered, I think, when Trump got, he got onto the first ballot, and I think that's only grown, and like that backlash has come back. I mean, it's so obvious that the connection is there. There's a reason why Roe v. Wade was overturned, right? Like it wasn't like it was 100% Christianity, but like I can't say that without there being like a flip side of like, okay, well, it's like Elon Musk will be pretty public about it and say that people are persecuting Christians, which I don't agree with that either. Like, I don't think that anybody is trying to attack Christians. We just don't want people using Christianity to oppress other people.
Yeah, completely right.
But I went on a whole tangent there. But like, so, I mean, I don't know if you wanted to continue on your story as a child. Like, I mean, like, you're 10 years old. Obama got elected. What, the world is your oyster.
Yeah, and like the term at the time going around, which, my parents always hated, but I definitely heard it was like we were a post-racial society. That's what people were saying back then, which was the craziest thing of all time to say.
Yeah, I don't think we were ever a post-racial society.
Exactly. Everybody wanted.
We were always less racist than we were. Now I wouldn't say that at all, but like I think maybe at one period of time.
Yeah, but I remember when that phrase started getting thrown around. That phrase might have radicalized me. Because I was like, wait a minute, that's totally not true, guys. But yeah, no. The point is, I felt there was a lot of hope in the household on a microcosmic level, I suppose, when Obama was elected, and having two artist parents. It was, if there was any time where I was going to be supported in becoming an artist and trying to be an artist full time, it was then.
Right. So part of the reason, I mean, like when I first reached out to you, it was after you had posted a tweet. And I'll just read it. It just says, America has a cultural issue that is rooted in many things, but I think it'd fall apart if we collectively address people's individualism and the idea of a meritocracy. Those are big hindrances in class solidarity and progress as a people. I had some thoughts on that, but I didn't know if you were willing to expound on that, maybe talk about it more.
Yeah, I can't remember what got on my nerves that day, but I can remember that I've had a lot of issues with. I guess what probably spurned that tweet was this idea of like what it is to be a billionaire, and how everyone, or not everyone, but many a person believes that they to speak to the meritocratic thing, they think that working harder will get you more, and that everyone who has a lot has worked hard for it. When I think that has never been the case anywhere at all.
Right.
It's very, very rare to have something that's truly meritocratic. Honestly, it's like even something like battle rap. You know, there is a level of meritocracy there. I would say more so than a lot of other places because it's so grassroots and it's so internal. But even then, there's other things. You know, you could just have, like Lil Slap didn't work harder than anybody. No offense to the kid,
Right.
but
Right.
he didn't work harder. And there are people who are working harder will never get a good battle. There are people who sort of have easy street. It is how it is. But America is uniquely unmeritocratic. It is like specifically and very uniquely unmeritocratic. They like to say that the hardest working people get the most back and the people who have the most work the hardest. That's ridiculous in a country that has had slavery for 200 years. You know what I'm saying? That is
Right.
ridiculous to say when that's like saying slaves aren't hard workers, which is insane. Like they're doing
Right.
all of the labor, all of the hard stuff, all of the annoying, grueling stuff that nobody wants to do.
And
But
America would not be in the position that it currently is economically if it wasn't for that, right?
exactly, so it's crazy to have people who like, it's one thing to have like a wasp say it to me, right? Like a straight white cis male say that to me. I can genuinely believe that they don't have the awareness, the cultural awareness, the social awareness to actually understand the meaning of what they say. When I see somebody like me say that, or someone who is clearly oppressed in one or two or three very obvious ways, when they say, anyone who's failing is because they didn't work hard enough, it's like you can't possibly think that. If I just stood here and shot you in the leg right now, it would curtail your entire everything. You know what I mean? That like, am I supposed to believe you're lazy because I just shot you in the leg? That's insane. Like, no, it's not about that. Like, that's not how this thing is built. It's not built on hard work. And even if like to say something like that and then also believe in this idea of generational wealth, you know what I mean? It's like generational wealth inheritance that is against meritocracy. If
Yeah.
you don't start from square one again, you didn't get it meritocratically. You got it because someone gave it to you. It was a handout. Your heirlooms, your trust funds, your nest eggs, all of that stuff is antithetical to meritocracy. Even though for what's it called affirmative action, right? To get rid of something like affirmative action because it feels unmeritocratic, like people just should be working harder and be better. There are legacy admissions. You know what I mean? Like there are people who just had family who have been to the school already. It's like that's not meritocratic. That
Right.
is literally a freebie. You know what I mean?
I mean, people have just like had families that paid to get them into there. Like that was the whole thing with the fucking whoever the woman from Full House, right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. With Lori Loughlin or whatever her name is,
yeah,
and Felicity Hoffman, whatever her name is. I don't care. I don't watch either of them. The point is,
yeah.
are cheating. Um, and to individualism, it's to that point. It's like everyone also believes that one, they can become a billionaire, and two, that they only have to serve themselves and they'll be good. Or like there's no understanding that another person is similar to them. Like saying that you want a meritocratic world and looking at others as like you're not hardworking because you're not doing as good as me. That sort of othering is stupid. It's like, listen, you guys, like I think I learned this perspective. I feel like I've had that perspective, but it really is in my face because I do after school and I work with elementary school students. These are all kids, you know what I'm saying? I'm looking at these kids. I was like, I have no idea who you're going to be. I don't know what you'll look like in 20 years, but I see you right now. And I see each and every one of you, tripping over yourselves, snotting on your face, throwing a ball back and forth, pretending that you're princesses, pretending that you're drawbridges or whatever. You're like, every single one of us was that. You know what I mean? So when
Right.
I see something like that, I'm like, it's crazy for people to be so othering in adulthood. It's like we all have a story of how we got here. People didn't plop up as an adult. Like there is a life we've all lived. Of course, it starts to look different the more and more it goes, and even at that age, it can look very different for certain people. But the idea of oneself being the only self and believing in this uniqueness and specialness that one has, there's too much of anything is a bad thing. And like, it's good to be unique. It's good to be, weird and, embrace your identity in that regard. But it's ludicrous to act as if structures of power and systems in society don't affect you because you're just so darn unique. There's
Right.
just none of that. That's ridiculous to me.
Right, and I agree with that entirely. I mean, I mean, I've experienced that too, right? Where I mean, like even it's not even necessarily about race. Race is definitely a big part of that and part of like a disadvantage that some people have. But even in my experience, right? Like I could tell you one girl I knew when I was in high school who we like I don't know if you ever had like an elective or heard of like an elective with where people would be like in office and they would just be like doing like errands and stuff for like all the administrative work and stuff. So we were together and I used to, help her do her math homework, right? Like, and by help, I mean, just did it, right? Like I didn't tell her like, this is how you do it. She was just like, I don't want to do this here. You could do it. And I was, a simp. So I did it because she was really hot, but like that's the way it went. Right. Like, and then, a couple years later down the road, not even, her mom buys her a car. Her mom also, or like, I don't know exactly who it was. It could have been somebody in her family. But, either way, by the time she was like 20 or something, or not even, she had the funds to open up her own beauty salon. Right. And she was able to, keep that salon going she still runs it. Right. Like, and she probably has like a second location or something. So when we talk about meritocracy, right, like, these are two different people. Like I was the one doing the homework that she like the merit. I was the one that all that merit was me. And but like not even that. Like it's just like it just came from the fact that and I have a hard time. Like there's a part of me like I know it does like go out onto the internet, and I don't want to like name people I know and like people I've like dated or things like that. But I just know for a fact because I've seen it with my own eyes time and time again. Like people who come from different families that again they're given they're given the affordability to like start their own business because number one, they don't have to like work a job. They have the ability to go out there and fail. Number two, they're being given a loan of, hundreds of thousands of dollars from, family members, and they're able to start some kind of business, and then they're able to use that business to, further their wealth. And I go through life and I tangentially like encounter these people, but I don't like I was never like given any type of like hand me down or anything like that. I again know people who wouldn't have houses if they didn't have money given to them by their grandparent, whether that be through like inheritance or through just pure like here you go, right? Like no strings attached. This is your down payment for my wife and I, we had to like save up for a down payment, but before we could even save up for a down payment, we had to both go to college. Before we could do that, like I was just working like in a shitty like I was working at Ross Dress for Less, right? Like and that was my full-time job. It wasn't something I was doing to get to the next step of my career or whatever. It was like I started working there, and then I bought into this idea of like, oh, if I work really hard, then they're going to promote me, and then maybe I'll become store manager. And then I quickly found out that like it doesn't work that way. The level of what they expect you to do is unrealistic all the time, especially like if you're in a managerial role of like other people. You can't just make people work, right? Like you can try your best to try to convince them. But like at the end of the day, people are going to move at the pace that they feel like moving at. So like a lot of what I did like back in the day, because I just like kind of drank the Kool-Aid on that, was like I would just work overtime, but I did it off the clock, and then I would get in trouble for that because like I was trying to get these results, and I was like, okay, if I work hard enough, I can do this, right? And I did this in multiple different locations, and it just never actually worked out that way. It wasn't really it. The thing that helped me get from, because now I'm finally in a position where my wife and I we're able to buy a house. Where I haven't told anybody that, but like we're very very close to being able to close. And like it took a while to get here, but it was more than anything, it was partially just like connections. I mean, like I like part of it was like me being able to meet somebody, and then like I was working while she was going to school, then she was working while I was going to school, and then now we like both make better salaries than we did like when we first started dating each other. But I would never have even met her if it weren't for like like my stepmom allowed me to, come up to Maryland when I was living in Florida. And when I was living in Florida, like, I was just not, I was in a more like, I was living in a trailer. So it's just like, it wasn't like, I wasn't really in a predicament where I could actually like, kind of prosper. So the only reason it wasn't hard work that got me there. It was really just, connections and maybe making like the smarter moves of like, okay, well, obviously retail is a dead end. I'm going to go like, go back to college and get a degree in something that actually like will pay more money. And then even that just turned out to be kind of false. I mean, at least in my, scenario, my wife, she has a lot more job stability because she's in the medical system. But like for me, I got into programming, and then like by the time that I graduated, then immediately like all of the jobs were kind of gone, and then like ChatGPT came out, and then that's like another blow. And then now you have like Trump is basically just laying off all of these federal workers. Those people are all going to be competing for jobs in the same area. So it's basically it's lowering the or it's increasing the supply of workers and lowering the supply of jobs, and that just basically kind of dilutes the entire like job market for my personal career. Again, has nothing to do with merit. Like you these different variables. Yeah, you can argue that like, oh, if you work hard enough as a software engineer, you can still make $500,000. But like, I have to work a lot harder now than I did 5-10 years ago, because like 5-10 years ago, they were literally letting people without degrees get $200,000 jobs in FANG. Because there was such a shortage of like workers that were able to, do the work, and they needed those workers. So it had nothing to do with the fact that they worked harder. It had nothing to do with the degree that they had. It just had to do with the fact that like, by whatever reason, the environment created the supply and demand, then there was more demand for workers at that time. And there was a lot of supply of jobs that wanted like those workers, and they just kind of got grandfathered into it. Like, I mean, I think it's entirely inaccurate to say that we have ever lived in a meritocracy to begin with. I mean, like, there's just so many things that clearly prove that that's not the case. But
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's like, even to say that, it's not to say that hard work isn't helpful. It's incredibly helpful. Having a work ethic is better than not. Working hard is better than not working at all. But like this idea that people have of like, like the phrase, like, what's the word? The phrase, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, right? I've seen this said before, but I like to say it every time I can. That phrase is a perfect phrase because it doesn't make sense. Pulling yourself up by your bootstraps is not possible. If you pull your bootstraps upward, you will not rise. You will stay there. That's not how physics work. If you try to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you will stay on the ground. That's perfect for what this is, because when people tell you to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, it's not going to work. That's not the only thing you need. You know what I mean? You can, lift your foot up by hand if you want to get to the next step. But what you really need is that step. What you really need is probably someone to tie your shoe for you. Like it would help if someone like pushed you or whatever, for the sake of that analogy. But even outside of the analogy, it's like the working hard is not ever going to be it. That's never going to be all that it takes. Because I know I've seen the rhetoric of people saying like, oh, this wasn't luck, this was hard work, blah, blah, blah. It's like, but it was luck. All of it is luck. I'm from New York City. That's luckier than most of the world, I think. I mean, hey, I'm biased. I love my city. But the opportunities and the experiences I can gain due to the proximity I have to New York City, being born in Manhattan, my only two houses being in Brooklyn and Queens, I am lucky. I'm super lucky compared to somebody who's from, I don't know, Walla Walla, Washington or Elmo, Wyoming. Like, what do you do with that? I mean, you can still do great things. Like I could choose a country. I could choose, the North Sentinel Islands. Who knows what you would do there? I don't know. But the point is, everything has a little bit of luck. And I think people would benefit from just admitting that there are power structures in place and some people benefit from it more than others, and that luck will have a hand in everything you do. You don't have to, give it all. And I know a lot of people say like give all glory to God. Sure, you could say it's God, you could say it's fate, you could say it's destiny, you could say it's luck, you could say it's chance, whatever. Name it what you want. But there are factors outside of your control that will influence how your life goes. And I think the more people begin to realize that, the more together people will feel. Because again, anything can happen. You can do everything right and still get shot. You can do everything right and still accidentally hit your head on a cruise ship, drown. Anything can literally happen. You could do everything wrong and win the lottery. You could do everything wrong and just have a best friend who has the greatest business idea ever, and it's success. And it's a success. Boom. You go from, nothing to something. Had nothing to do with hard work. You got lucky. And I will say, in a not in a meritocratic sense, but for me, what has been helpful in life, not to say I'm doing well in life, I think I'm doing kind of dirt, but for what I am doing, what has helped me is hard work in the sense of, one, being a good person, and two, just being there for people, for things. That has gone the extra mile for me. Like, the reason I got to write for Epic Rap Battles of History is because I was trying to help Frack without me knowing who he was at all. I just wanted to be good to others, and that translated coming back to me. That's not the point of what I'm doing. I never thought that was on the table. What I thought was on the table was Frack succeeding, and I just wanted to be a part of that. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted to help. I thought it would be great to have the people that I saw talent in gain more and more success. I would do anything to help these people out. But I think, because especially being in New York, it's funny because like I'm gonna say a different city, but being in New York, everyone's Hollywood. It's insane. As an artist, as a rapper specifically, rap has so much ego. Hip hop has so much ego and machismo. That like it's harder to find. And New York specifically is so competitive. You see the West Coast has a lot of unity. They're the West Coast, but in the East Coast, New York does not rock with Philly, does not rock with Boston, does not rock with New England as a whole, does not rock with the South, does not rock with the DMV.
Am I incorrect, or there are probably parts of New York I feel like that don't necessarily rock with each other? Like, I mean, different.
That's what
boroughs.
I was about to say. Like, you go to New York City, they don't talk about Long Island, they don't talk about Rochester, Buffalo, Syracuse, upstate New York. You go to four of the boroughs in New York City, they're not going to rock with Staten. You go to Queens, they're not going to rock with Brooklyn. You go to Brooklyn, they're not going to rock with the Bronx. You go to the Bronx, they're not going to rock with Harlem. You know what I mean? There's infighting, there's all this stuff, there's territorialism and stuff like that. So it's a very competitive world. It's changing. The culture is changing, I would say. As an underground rapper, I've seen the change. It's not as catty and cagey. It's a little bit more like, hey, we're in New York and we're all trying. Unity is coming, but what I wanted to say on that is sort of sorry, I'm sick. My brain is like
now you get
crazy. What I wanted to say on that is that it has helped us a lot, I believe, just being good to each other. Because I remember when I was like much younger and trying to get through in rap, everyone was Hollywood. They would never try to talk to you or try to know you. They would just use you to advertise their song, not talk to you otherwise.
right.
Like they're gonna say like, come to my show, listen to my song, and it would be an automated message that they send to everybody that follows them. You don't even get to talk to them. You don't even know them. And
Right.
I go through who I see on Instagram, and I know some people I've had conversations with, people who have looked me in the eyes and we've talked. I go to Instagram, they're not following me back. I'm still following them. They're treating me like a fan. They're like, let me just cleanse them out and keep them as a fan, not interact with them.
Right.
And it's like, what are you doing, man? Like you haven't, if you make it, okay, you got me. I can't really catch up to you. It is what it is. And, everyone's going to talk to you now. You might as well try to keep your circle small when you're that big. But it's a lot of these people that are still my peers. And it's like, why are you being Hollywood to me? I want to help you. I probably can help you. You probably can help me. It would be best for us to just be good to each other.
Right.
Which is why I show up for people. People throw a cypher, people do a show, people do whatever. I'm just like, yeah, sure, let me know. I want to say what's up. I want to say hi. I go to battle events I'm not battling on. I go to beatboxing events I'm not beatboxing on. I go to Cyphers I'm not a part of. I go to Cyphers not to rap. I go to Cyphers not even to like, because I know a lot of people show up, they want clout. Cameras are there, they'll show up. But me, I'm just like, hey, I want to talk to these people here. I want to know what's up. We're all out here. We're all trying. I can see them trying. I can see me trying. I want to see what works, what doesn't. How can we all get a little bit better, go a little bit further? You know what I'm saying? So in that regard, I would say that's where hard work pays off the most. Showing up for other people and just trying to be good about it. You might not get anything out of it most of the time, but uh, moral of the story is watch It's a Wonderful Life. That movie's correct.
I guess I wanted to. This isn't my perspective, but I also wanted to just like I try to look at things from like an opposite angle of like what I tend to think sometimes. So I guess like devil's advocate, going back to like maybe the discussion about meritocracy, discussion about like okay, some people have things handed to them. So I think there's a counter argument that like let's say for example you have parents that are really wealthy and then they like give you money like the people that I was mentioning like that they're able to start a business, but some people would argue okay, well that's still meritocracy because that money is coming from their parents and allegedly their parents worked hard to get that money and they deserve the right to be able to give that to their children and then their children no longer, which also does to me. I mean, I'm now making a counter argument
I was
toward
gonna
my
say
own
you're
counter.
devil and you're devil.
Yeah, I know, but it's just like it like enrages me so much that I can't even like get through it because it's just like it's still not merit, right? You're not giving a shit about the merit that your children are doing, but like, all right, yeah, I mean, like that. Let me just pose that question to you, and you can use my same argument too. But like,
Uh,
but it's just like, it's like what would you say to somebody that says like, that they have the right to give their children like this money and that gives them a competitive advantage,
I want to
because
say,
that is meritocracy in their eyes.
yeah, I want to say it's like it's similar to the discussion that I've had about the word privilege with people, where it's like, um, me saying you have a privilege doesn't mean you didn't work hard, you didn't do anything. I'm sure there's a lot of merit. Like for a nepo baby, a lot of these nepo babies, they do have merit. They are talented. They are great. They do work hard. It's just that there are people working harder than them and getting less, just straight like that,
Right.
no matter what. That's always going to be the case. So for people who do get like a lot of money from their parents, um, whether or not their parents worked hard for that money, whether or not they worked hard with that money, the hard work isn't the crux of it. Even if it's there, you could be the hardest working person of all time, you know, but being the hardest working person of all time versus the hardest working person of all time with $100,000, they're going to get different results, you know. And I would say 99 times out of 98 times, the person with the money is going to do significantly better. Um, so it really isn't about like, you have privilege, you have luck on your side, you automatically win. You can have that like starting amount and do worse. You could be completely lazy, you could blow it, you could gamble it off, you can spend it, blah blah blah. That the wealth and the merit have no bearing on each other. It's your work ethic, how you work, and the resources you have. Those are two separate columns, because like someone like like let's say MacGyver, very little, famously resourceful, he got a lot of results out of very little. That him being given a bunch of resources, he could probably do exponentially more. Not it, For an example, just an example of a resourceful guy, a Bear Grylls kind of situation, like someone who's got like nothing but the wilderness on their side. Some people will do better, some people will do worse. And like, honestly, I feel this way about a lot of famous artists, because I see them as people who have all the resources in the world. It's like, yo, just give me those resources. I promise I'll do so much more with it. I see some artists, I'm like, you have everything in the world you could use, and you make this. But that goes into subjectivity. But the point is,
I want to know like what is the most amount of budget somebody had to make the biggest pile of shit. And I like,
yeah, right.
do you have anything in your mind? Like I'm trying to like think of something, but I'm drawing a blank.
Well, I mean, I have a bunch of go-to answers because I'm a hater. I'm a serial hater. Um,
Maybe I just don't hate enough. That's my problem. Like,
Yeah, maybe. My number one answer for that is Kanye West. It's always going to be Kanye West. I always think that he has the opportunity to do so much, and he has a bunch of half-baked ideas that he's like cleaning up in post and stuff like that. It's like literally, you are one of the richest people that has ever existed. You have teams of writers, you have teams of blah 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 blah, and yet you've somehow been able to make 4 albums in a row that most people don't really like. And the last album that I would say was universally beloved, I would argue, is The Life of Pablo. That had versions released after because you didn't clean it up the first. It's like literally, you could ask any engineers, you could ask any artist ever to work with you at this time, um, and get the exact product you want. And you still somehow miss the mark over and over and over again. It's like, I can't, and like people, listen, I hate Kanye West to death. I've never liked Kanye West, but I've gone from dislike to hate over the recent years.
you know what the thing is that I was a really big Kanye West fan when he first came out. Like College Dropout was my shit, and like it's still my favorite album of all of his. But like I used to listen to it all the time, and then like he just got exponentially worse and worse as he got for not only musically, just as a person as well.
Mhm.
But like so it really sucks. It always like whenever you have like anybody that like you grow up and you kind of like idolize to an extent, and then you find out, oh, like these are like really shitty people and shit. Like,
Yeah. I've stopped idolizing people on the whole darn near. I still have some idols, I'm sure, but I'm very critical of even people I like. I'm very, very critical of everybody just because I know how it goes. I know, again, it's still an element of we're all people. I get it. Some people like, and not everybody's me, and not everybody's going to align with me. But as someone who never liked Kanye, I never liked how he rapped. As a kid, I didn't even listen to him that much. If I did listen to him, it was because of somebody else. Like I liked Good Life because of T-Pain. I liked Brand New because of Rhymefest. But I just think that someone like him, I think he should, and I feel like he's come close. He's used a lot of his resources. He's used a lot of more resources than a lot of his peers. And still doesn't do what I think he should theoretically be capable of, especially when everybody calls him a genius. That's sort of like, once you put him to that standard, then I'm like, I want to see that. And career hater, I don't think he's ever showed genius to me, and he never will. But again, I'm super critical of him.
I mean, I'll say that I think. Well, he kind of did what other people were doing in terms of sampling, but he did at least come up with like the sped up sample kind of thing. So at least in that sense,
I think
was
that's
an
great.
innovator.
I think genius is way too courteous.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely way too much. But I mean, if we're talking about like actual music, I mean, I would maybe even place like Eminem in that category as well. Just like newer Eminem, I just feel like this is somebody that I think has all the resources in the world and like is not really putting out great music in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how people have so many like so many things going in their favor and still like you can reach out to your people around you and not get feedback from them like on how like who keeps telling you to do this dubba 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 Teletubby shit? Like I don't understand. Who's like, yeah, that shit's fire. I need more of that. Like I don't fuck with it. I mean like, and I think the majority of people don't. But I mean like I guess like I remember actually seeing an interview with him like when he was much younger, and he was like talking about like when he was in like the freestyle era and shit, and talking about like how he recognized that like, yeah, I just rap really fast and people think I'm really good because I rap faster. So he seems to still think that. But like, I mean, like, I mean, Twista is pretty good, but like Busta Rhymes is pretty good. But like both of them, I don't really put them up in my GOAT tier level. Like, I just feel like, I've never heard a like super double time rapper like that I put in like my top 25 personally, in my opinion.
For me, Twista and Tech Nine are the only two that I have in that upper echelon. I think Busta Rhymes is a great rapper. I think when he raps fast, he gets worse. He gets significantly worse when he raps fast because he starts using synonyms over and over again. He's like, I hit him, then I punch him, and then I kick him, and then I'm like, all right. Like he did I want to say the Welcome to My Hood remixes. He says to fill out his syllables, you can Google it and you can search it, and I was like, that's the same thing. But I'm a huge Twista fan. For someone who's a hater and is very critical of Chicago rap as a whole, I love Twista. But I get what you're saying, and I think it's weird because I have so many thoughts on fast rap, and I always think about how heavily criticized it is. Because I think a lot of rappers are whack slow. So I'm like, fast, there's at least something, fun and riveting about that. Because I'm like, you guys are saying kind of nothing slowly, and they're saying something nothing fast, but fast rappers get a way worse rap. And I think it depends on. I'm trying to figure out what it is that makes people like it versus dislike it. Because Ski Mask the Slump God and JID get all this praise, but someone like Eminem or Tech Nine will be called corny or whatever. And I'm trying to weed out what that is. I mean, the way I just said it, it sounds like an age thing, but JID is like, he's not. I'm like 10 years younger than him, so like I don't think age is all of that. I don't know. I have a lot of feelings on fast rap.
I mean, I don't check for like a lot of new music these days. It's just in general, I've just gotten to the point where I'm just like phasing it all out, and I only listen to my old shit. But like, so the only things I've heard from JID, like he raps fast, but not the ones I've heard. I think I heard Ego Trip or whatever with Win or whatever, and
Yes.
JID was on that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And but yeah, it's like fast, but not double time. And like when I think about like fast, like my maximum speed where like I'm like, okay, this is fire, is like Big Pun, right? Like Big Pun to me was like he raps really fast, but but like I also just like really like, it doesn't have to be like slow, but like, I mean I definitely like the old boom bap, like, typical New York, flow, Nas, AZ, all those other people. So I mean like it's all relative, like what you consider to be fast versus what you consider to be like slow. But I think Eminem just like, yeah, too much for me.
Fair enough.
He also just like, I don't know, just like I have a hard time telling sometimes if like I just got older and I evolved to not like his music as much, or if he genuinely like was much better when he was younger than like he was when he was older. I mean, part of it, like there's so many differences. Like his voice is different. He's got a much deeper voice, and even like I think maybe like his like accent is a little bit different. And the things he raps about for sure are different. Now he just kind of does lyrical miracle type stuff. It's like I didn't check like the last album. Listen, I tried to listen to like some of it, and then immediately I'm just like, off. But yeah, I will say there was one time where I felt like I debunked that theory because I never heard. There was a song called "Kids," I think, off of the original Marshall Mathers LP, and I never heard that song because it was the clean. I had the dirty version of the album, and I guess that song was only on the clean version. And that was actually like I heard that like several years later when I like knew a little bit more about hip hop and I was like more like aware of like, and I was already in a phase where I was like, yeah, Eminem's falling off and everything. But then I like went back and listened to that song and I was like, wow, this is incredible. Like this is the Eminem I fell in love with like when I first heard him. But yeah.
I want to say, in regards to Eminem, I'm less critical of him just because, I admire him as a rapper. Like I just saw a clip of him freestyling in a battle, and I'm like mystified. I was like, "Holy cow, he was so good at that so early on. He looked so comfortable rapping, and he was freestyling crazy stuff. I was like, this dude's amazing. I revere him in a talent sense, and I know he's capable of something like that. I definitely don't listen to him very regularly, and if I do listen, it's usually his older stuff. But if you want an Eminem verse that I think holds up and is like very strong of his modern stuff, he has a song called Nat, and the last two verses of that song are very good, especially the final verse because he gets one of the greatest beats I've ever heard, and he stays in this flow pocket the entire time, and he's saying like cool and creative stuff. And I want to say something about Eminem that I think is lost on modern Eminem is that old Eminem, he wasn't as punchline heavy. Like he had some wordplay here and there, but a lot of it was him sort of setting a scene and creating an idea and having it all rhyme very well. And nowadays he's a lot more of a wordplay guy, and a lot of his wordplay is very cheesy and corny and annoying. And then he gets into some of the facet things. You know, I liked his verse on Caterpillar, even though there were like 2 or 3 lines that I thought was like, no. Even though I thought Caterpillar was a great verse from him, I was like, but I think Nat, he toes the line very well. He doesn't say anything too cheesy. It feels very Eminem, but it feels very modernized. And I do revere more of his, like, you know, web spinning, storytelling, world building, that sense of rap rather than his wordplay in and out of going fast kind of rap. But you know, I'm gonna revere Eminem forever. I think, and it's crazy because I didn't listen to him as a kid. I saw his I saw his "Just Lose It" music video when I was a kid. It scared me. It freaked me out. I never listened to Eminem after that because I literally couldn't look at him after he was in the Michael Jackson cosplay and his nose burnt off. I was too afraid to see that. Freaked me out. I didn't listen to Eminem until I was much older.
Yeah, I will say that, like, I think instead of like being like punchline heavy, he did just have like, I think, lyrics that were just witty, right? Like he would, I'm not gonna shoot you, I'm gonna pull you to this bullet and put it through you. Like that's not a punchline. It's not wordplay. It's just a, you know, kind of a, you know, a unique and like, you know, you're like, I don't know if clever is the right word, but it's a, you know, it's like a thought
Cool idea.
Yeah, and like so, and I always wonder this about rap battling in general too, where I don't know if there's really that big of a market. I mean, even you obviously are a rap battler and you appreciate like everything, like you appreciate punchlines and wordplay and all of these things. Not everybody does, but even you're kind of like, this isn't maybe as hot. Like, I feel like I wonder in rap battling if we're kind of alienating some of our crowds by like, you know, being a little too lyrical, a little too you know, you have to really think to understand the bar, get the bar. And that was kind of like maybe the beauty of like old grind time stuff to me, was that other than the fact that like it was only 15-minute you know, battles, or maybe 20 minutes, it was accessible, I think, to anybody could just put it on and be like, oh, you know, and be entertained by it, right? Like there's a lot of people, I think, that just don't really want to, or don't even, like, you know, maybe they just don't even process that there's like, you know, wordplay and double entendre is going on, where they, you know, kind of put on a rap battle and they're like, hey, what the hell is this? Or you know, some of it is also gate kept to an extent by slang, right? Like you have to know certain things. You have to know, like, you know, different, you know, words for like guns and drugs in order to get like some bars. So like, do you think that rap battling would benefit? I mean, there are definitely a lot of battlers who don't necessarily go super lyrical and just kind of like entertain. But do you think that rap battling as a whole would benefit from kind of maybe dumbing it down a bit, or not even dumbing it down, but just kind of you know, having more emphasis on things other than just wordplay and punchlines?
I'm at a point with it where I can't bring myself to to care about what the smartest capitalistic business endeavor would be. Do I think that would be smart in a revenue garnering way? Probably. I can't bring myself to care about that because I think it's bigger than that. I think having it the way it is now, where some people genuinely don't do that kind of stuff and some people are much more lyrically very heavy and layered. I think having it the way it is perfect. Uh, because I don't want to feed into the culture we have right now of this sort of anti-intellectualism. I'm sick of dumbing things down. You know, you spend a whole like decade, right, of the conversation leaning towards, if you can't play this in the club, it's whack. If you can't play it in the car in front of people, you know, it's whack. You know, and the everlasting argument of maybe the curtains were just blue. I hate that stuff. I love literary analysis. I love breaking stuff down. And I want to encourage and foster that idea of there is something more. There is something, like, give it more time, give it more chance. Because I think that's more valuable right now for humanity, for society. I would prefer that battle rap kept the heady, layered stuff instead of foregoing it for the simpler stuff that is more accessible. And yes, it would be more accessible. You can send it to more people. You use less slang. You know, don't use slurs at all, and you make it like 13 minutes and you have people rap sort of just like style disses, it's more roast heavy, you would get a whole bunch of traction. People would love that. People gravitate towards that because, you know, you roast people, you can use it in your daily life. It's stuff like that, you know. Um, and heavily lyrically dense stuff that's only going to appeal to the people who sort of love the art of, you know, the art of language and the art of rap. I get that, but I don't care. I'm at a point where I'm just like, it would be better to archive incredibly well written things rather than trying to chase the money that comes with giving a product to the lowest common denominator, which is whoever the heck can understand a couple of words here and there. So that's where my answer sort of lies. Like, yes, I think it would be better. I would not do it.
Right. No, I mean that makes sense to me. Like I like in my head I always, you know, go counter argument, but like the thing is I mean like I agree with you. I mean I don't want to see like because that's part of what gravitated me towards, you know, battle rap to begin with. I appreciate the lyricism. It like there's a reason why I still do it, right? Like I started when I was 12. I'm 35. Like there's nothing else like it. I've done stand up comedy. It's a little bit like that, but not the same. It's not as intellectual. It's not as people aren't pushing the envelope. I don't feel like in that capacity the way that people do in rap battling, and that to me has always been like a major appeal of it. But I feel like I'm a little bit more in the cerebral camp, you know, in terms of battle rap, where I appreciate that stuff, but I also see that, you know, even when I do bars and stuff, I feel like sometimes they go over heads and like, you know, just like I feel like I think also about like the battle rap community as a whole. I know everybody wants to be able to make a profit off of it. Everybody wants to like be able to say like, you know, this is something that I pursue as a endeavor. So this is like the whole capitalist problem, like the paradox, I guess, which is that like the idea theoretically is that like we foster competition, where, you know, okay, let's say hypothetically we did dumb it down and we, you know, we go back to like grind time type shit. I'm not saying get rid of slang, you know, slang, but I mean like get rid of like, you know, super intellectual bars that are hard to process, hard to grasp for people, or at least to enough of a degree that like it's more you know, accessible to most people. That would theoretically bring in more money to battle rap, and that would allow people the opportunity to get paid. Everybody wants to get paid. I've never met a battle rapper who was like, "Yeah, I don't ever want to be able to make a living off of this." I mean, that's the dream, I think, for most of us. But theoretically, it also, and this is what happened, I think, with Grind Time, it brings in a lot more people, and then a lot more people means a lot more competition. Now, if we're going to be realistic about it, because I was actually just watching like a video the other day about like white rappers and stuff, and like the paradox of that. But like the the reality is, if that happened, we would probably have an influx of a lot more white rappers, and that would like end up. They would 100% like find a way to hijack it, you know, like they do everything, and just like it would just, you know, kind of cater to that. You would have like the new like equivalent of like Vanilla Ice or like whatever, and there would be like, you know, some white rapper who becomes like the biggest white, you know, the biggest battle rapper of all time, even though everybody else has been doing this for fucking decades. But it would only be once it becomes, you know, mainstream accepted among the white community that like we get a Vanilla Ice or we get an Eminem, where they just kind of like become like the top selling, you know, rapper that people actually start to give a fuck about rap, and they're like, oh well, I don't like rap, but I like Eminem, or I like Vanilla Ice, or and you would get that with battle rap too, where, you know, so it's just like that's definitely like the negative aspect of it. But the counter argument there is that like if you have more people that are all competing in the same space. Theoretically, you're introducing more competition. You're raising the bar because all of those people are supposed to be competing with each other, which is again like kind of. I also it's not the first time I've ever thought about like capitalism in a financial sense, in like society as a whole, and like battle rap, because battle rap is honestly like a very like it's a great, if you look at it, it's a great indicator of what capitalism was at a snapshot in time, because it's not quite at the place where capitalism as a whole in our society is, but it definitely like it started out really really small, and then like grind time came out, a lot of people kind of came influxed, and then you have a lot of people who are still popular from the grind time era, right? Like if you were to like think about this like statistically, like the number of battle rappers between like, whatever year, grind time came out, like, up until 2008, there might have been maybe like, I don't know, a couple hundred battle rappers that like were really like, active in the scene, actively, making some kind of money, and doing it so often that they could be professional or so. And not even just like they're not really living off of it, but they're just, making a side hustle. But then grind time comes in, and then you have thousands and thousands of people that are now viewing it. Then there's like thousands of rappers that come in, and statistically speaking, the majority of names, when you think about them, are still like, if you like, it doesn't make sense that thousands and thousands of people came in, but a lot of our bigger names are still the same people that were there out of that pool of 100. Like we were a small pond, and like we became a big pond, but like we have like a lot more people, which theoretically means a lot more talent, but it is a subjective sport. So, but there's still like, if you look at guys like, and I'm not throwing shade at all, because, like I think like Marv One is a legend, a legend, a legend. I can't emphasize that enough. But like, Marv One, Thesaurus, Immaculate. If you look at, Disaster, there's so many examples of people that were around during the grind time era. And yeah, there are new names that, somehow became, popular in spite of that. But I just know for a fact it is statistically significant. If I actually sat down, because I just I've observed it. I have observed it and looked at Verse Tracker and looked at like these names that are still like the number one names and stuff. There is a statistic, like if you were around in that era, you are statistically likely to be more successful than if you came in after that era. I just know that as a fact, and I could go through the numbers and prove it mathematically, but I'm not going to, because I'm too lazy. I'm fully capable of it, and I'm nerdy enough to do it, but I won't. But yeah, I think about that as like a good metric for capitalism as well, because it's kind of the same thing, where I feel like there was a point in America's, infancy where like it was like old battle rap, and like America's infancy, like it wasn't super successful, and you probably had, really hard workers that like, were really good, and then eventually it kind of blew up, and then like more people came in. You have all these immigrants that come in from all over the place, and then the people that were successful are the people that were there at the ground floor. Like the people that were the most wealthy were the people that were already there. And then, but it couldn't possibly be off meritocracy unless you're, ignorant enough to assume that the people that were already there were just so head and heels better than everybody else that like nobody else was able to compete. But that just doesn't hold up in terms of looking at humans and the distribution of how work ethic works, and how intelligence works, and all of that. But I'm not really sure where I'm going with this, but it's just like a thought that I think about sometimes, where it's just like how capitalism as a whole kind of compares to like the battle rap scene.
Yeah.
There's also just like this other like idea where, and this is probably like a tangent, but it's just like the reality is that as we progress in time, the value of labor is decreasing, whereas the value of capital is increasing. So the further and further we get into it, we're automating more jobs, and that means that humans have to do less. But ironically, the fact is that like even if humans now have to do less to produce the same amount of stuff that we were producing 100, 200 years ago. Like, back in the day, you had to spend all day doing laundry. Now we just have a washing machine. You throw your clothes in and it's done. Like you could walk away. You don't have to do anything. So that's now time that you could be putting towards labor. We, rather than maintain the same status quo, we've like actually had to increase our labor because like we have men and women in the labor force, and yet they still are struggling to make, ends meet. We have two people doing what used to be the work of one person in an environment where we have enough machines that one person can produce as much as 20, 30 people used to be able to produce.
Mm-hmm.
That's fucking insane. Like it to me, like it just, it doesn't like, and it comes down to at the end of the day, there was somebody that like got in early and like they kind of like moved up the ranks, and then like they keep changing the rules of the game. It's like playing Monopoly, I think, where it's just like it's a never ending game of Monopoly where some people just come in at a brand new time, like so somebody else has already accumulated thousands of dollars, and then you come in, you start off with like $200 or whatever, and like somehow you're supposed to be like competing with that.
Yeah.
And it's just like not only that, but the people that have the thousands of dollars, they also have enough money to pay off the people that make the rules, and then they can like tip all the rules in favor of them on top of the fact that they already have the economic advantage and the resource advantage.
Exactly. It just what's the word? It snowballs,
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that. I just like, man.
Meritocracy is a ridiculous idea. It is just never you're never gonna really see that. It's very difficult to create anything in which merit is solely going to be the reason you succeed more. Like even in like Olympic sports, where it is where you would think it's like if you win more, you get more, but it's like Noah Lyles can lose a whole bunch of times. He's still such a character and such a personality that he will get more brand deals, you get more endorsements, and I wouldn't say that's working harder. I would just say that's luck. People gravitate to who he is. People want to talk about him.
Right.
Naomi Osaka. I would argue I don't think she would get less success without Corday, but I do think her being partners with Corday helps. I think Naomi Osaka does not need Corday whatsoever. Let me say that very clearly, very plainly. Also, it's getting dark in here, and I don't know where the sun went.
That's all good.
Turn on the light or something. But the point...
Where are you at, dude? It looks like, I don't know, a garage or something, man. It's just,
this is my
it looks
room.
very empty.
It's entirely blue.
Okay.
And I'm like up against the wall. But what I wanted to say was that there's more to it. There's always going to be more to it than the work, and I get why people want to believe that they can all do it and that anybody can be the one, but that's just ridiculous. I'm sorry, but it's just not. That's not the case.
Right. And then you were also talking about like individualism, and I think in every sense, I mean, individualism has always been kind of more harmful than helpful. I mean, at the end of the day, there's this idea that like we're all supposed to be competing against each other, and that's supposed to breed like the most amount of competition. And that was kind of what I was getting at with the battle rap. It's like, theoretically, if we like dumb down, the content, lots of people come in, which is basically what happened during grind time. Theoretically, the more people that you have, the more competition you have, and then that competition is supposed to breed a better product. So theoretically, that's supposed to like, and that does make sense, right? Like if you have 1 million people, you're more likely to find 100 incredible, top tier people than you are if you have like 1,000 people. But at the same time, it's like that. I think in battle rap, because it's a subjective thing, it doesn't necessarily happen. But I also think that, in society, it doesn't seem to happen. And society, is just, I don't know.
I think specifically about individualism, one thing that has sort of gotten on my nerves is that I think we've seen a capitalism that is starting to foster individualism. Like I was thinking recently about how it's so much easier to like fall for individualism and like the rhetoric of it because it feels so much more possible. You know, you couldn't do the amount of get rich quick schemes that you can pull off now. You know, there was no FanDuel, there was no TikTok, there was no, you know, you put a video out there, you just do it yourself, get lucky, blah blah blah. Like there weren't like these ways to sort of game the system, even though it is the system. It feels like gaming. People feel like they're, you know, getting one. But like, you know, the lotteries are bigger. There are more lotteries. There are more ways to just suddenly run into an insane amount of money. And that gives credence to people who say like, oh, it could be me. I could be rich one day, you know? And so like, and it's very individual. It's very like, I could get rich. I did it. I succeeded. There's less of a drive towards let's all build a better society for ourselves when everything about our culture breeds this idea of, hey, you can go and get it, it's right there, go, you know, you and just you. And that's infuriating because it's like it's so hard to build like a class solidarity when everybody within reason believes they can get rich. um and it's within reason, but it's not. You know, it's so unlikely that, you know, you hit the exact right parlay and you go from 200 to $200,000. It's so unlikely you get that lottery ticket. It's so unlikely you overnight become a TikTok celebrity and get paid to make, you know, every single TikTok you make and they're all getting 5 million views, right? It feels attainable because we start to see it more and there are so many avenues, you know, and OnlyFans even, you know, OnlyFans is like a hit situation where it's like people have gotten rich overnight. It's just another lane where people feel their individualism has been vindicated by society. It's like, I can do it. And it's like, really, you can't. Like, you can see the success stories, but you don't see in relationship how many of the failures there were, how many people aren't getting rich, how many people are struggling. It's like, it's infuriating to me to see how hard it is to sort of get everybody to rally together to understand that we're all at the same level, that if we don't sort of have the solidarity with each other, we can all go down, even if you think that you can get out of it with X, Y, and Z, you know? And it's like, you know, you have to sort of respect or like encourage the hustle because you don't want anybody to outright die. You don't want anybody to completely fall off, even though with solidarity, you can kind of hold each other up. You can't be like, hey, don't make an OnlyFans. Hey, don't use FanDuel. Don't use DraftKings. Don't make a TikTok. Don't try to be a content creator. You can't outright say that because, like, you don't want them to absolutely fold and fall. Maybe they need something, and that's like a desperation thing, or maybe they just like content creation. Who can say? But there is this element of individualism that is being encouraged more and more, and that's what scares me. And to the other point you're talking about capitalism breeds the competition, blah blah blah. I've felt that way about, you know, like technology and innovation up until the past 5, 6, 7 years, maybe, where like, you know, we grew up in a rapidly evolving digital age. You know, we go from VHS to DVD to Blu-ray to streaming. We go from 8-track to vinyl to CD to MP3 to streaming again. And it feels like what ended up happening is like we went from brick phone to flip phone to sidekick to a smartphone. It feels like we hit a wall or we plateaued, and now instead of innovation and competition, instead of competition breeding innovation, breeding more sales, breeding more success, breeding more things, it has become sort of, all right, we've hit this wall, what corners can we cut to get the most out of everything? Like, I feel like I haven't seen an innovation recently that has blown my mind and felt like it was going to change the game. I see those Oculus, you know, VR headsets or whatever, I'm like, this seems impractical. I don't get how it's better than what I have.
Man,
Like,
if I told you about the porn,
yeah, no, listen, man, that's the other thing. People, I want to say this just outright. If there's a new technological advancements, if there's a new technological advancement, it's going to be used for one of two things, if not both. The military, porn. That's the first thing that's going to happen. If it doesn't change the military or change porn, it's not going to hold. People aren't going to keep it. But that is to say, the VR headset, that was the first moment where I was like, maybe people will do this because porn succeeded on it. Or at least porn believed it could succeed on it. But after I saw the 3DS flop, I was like, okay, if the 3DS isn't going to go hot, then I don't think VR headsets are also going to do. Like, people don't care about the immersion that much. It's not a jump far enough the way a smartphone was a jump from a flip phone. It's not a jump enough to be like a game changer. But I feel that way about AI being integrated into things. I'm like, this isn't a big enough change for me to feel like we're getting something new that's, breaking down the doors. I get that it's being advertised that way, and I get that people have integrated ChatGPT or Grok or whatever stupid thing it is into their life. I understand that, but it does feel more like, Cleverbot mixed with Google. You know what I'm saying? It feels like a lot of people are using ChatGPT as a search engine or as Grammarly, you know what I mean, to shape up something they've done. It's like, it's not an innovation. It's sort of a centralization of a lot of things we've already had. And I know people talked about NFTs like it was an innovation. I was like, that's not new art. That's just a new, business endeavor. That's a new fiscal endeavor. It has nothing to do with art. It's not changing anything. It's just
one thing I will say though, that like the iPhone at the end of the day was kind of like an integration of a bunch of things that we had. I mean, at the end of the day, it was like the revolutionary part of it was that like it was the internet, it was the phone, it was whatever music, whatever other like, that was like kind of how it was like pitched. So I mean, yeah, I mean like you can also argue, I think, that the iPhone wasn't, all that revolutionary, but I mean, it does.
I agree.
It changes, the world, obviously.
I think what made it so game changing though is what things it chose to integrate, right? Like, I think ChatGPT bringing in sort of like Grammarly's like, oh, here's how you should word this, here's how you should say this, combined with Google's like, here's how you can find this, here's information quickly. I think that's different from changing the way we've lived in terms of like, now everybody has a camera on hand. You don't need to buy a disposable camera. You don't need to buy a camcorder. You have it. You have both right here. You don't have to buy a calculator. You have that here. Like, it cuts so many drastic corners that like, and like on top of having the internet, you know what I mean? Like, having that in your hand, that sort of was the big game changer. Now that we already have the internet in our hand, when I see like a VR headset, I'm like, I already have this and I don't much care to immerse myself in the apps or something like that. Like, I would say a VR headset's in the same lane as a 4D movie rather than the next step in a major technological advancement. It's like, when I saw a 4D movie, I was like, wow, I'm watching SpongeBob and I got spritzed with water and it smells like pickles in here. Cool. You know what I mean? Like, but we're doing a VR headset feels like that sort of gimmicky kind of fun. It's like, oh, cool, I'm swinging a golf club that I'm not swinging and it looks like golf in here. Awesome. Yeah. But
I'm not going to lie, though. That's a fun ass game, though. Did you ever play the Walkabout Golf?
I've played VR golf before, and I get it. It is super fun. It's cool, but it's like Dave and Buster's cool. It's not iPhone cool. It's not like, I remember when I got my first what's it called, word processor, and I could like write a document on 2 lines of text, plug it into a printer, and print that out. I was like, whoa. I can type faster than I can write. This is crazy. And then laptops come out, you can do that, and you can do XYZ. I just feel like innovation has sort of faltered off, and it feels like everybody's trying to cut as many corners as possible, give us as little as possible, and still get the most money out of it. Like, I feel like the innovation has gone slimy. That's how I feel about innovation these days. I feel like the innovation has gone slimy rather than going like, hey, let's blow everybody out of the water with our cool new innovation. It's just like, how little can we advance this and still get people to be on board with it?
Right. I think in terms of what you were saying about, individualism and just like people kind of pursuing like TikTok or whatever. I mean, the internet as it evolved, I think, went through the same phases as everything, right? Like, it had its own, because I think of it as it's on its own timeline of capitalism, right? So there's always, I think the first phase of it is where there really is a genuine, we are individuals, we are all competing to create the best product. That's probably stage one. But then like once you get further in, like somebody wins that game eventually. Like that's like if we were going back to the Monopoly analogy, that was the very first game of Monopoly that anybody played,
Yeah.
online, and like somebody got all the money. And then they like start taking that money and then they start investing it into other things. And at that point, nobody else that comes into the game is going to be able to compete with them because they already have all the resources. And it's like any game of Monopoly. Like no game of Monopoly ends like in a peaceful way, right? Like one person gets all the money and everybody else is fucked. That's it.
Yeah.
But so I saw that happen with YouTube, like prior to TikTok, and this is what I worry about with TikTok too. It's just like, and I mean, I'm not attached to TikTok, but like the idea of the individual fame on the internet is starting to disappear, and I think that I mean, it's a good thing and a bad thing. I mean, it depends on how you look at it, right? Like, you could argue that maybe not everybody should have a voice on the, on the internet to go viral. I mean, do I really need to know anything about Hawk Tuah girl? I don't give a fuck
Yeah,
about her.
exactly.
But like, at the same time, like, it does give a voice to literally everybody. There was a time like when I started out on YouTube, anybody could upload onto YouTube and there was a semi-reasonable chance that you could go viral, right? Like I had several viral videos and like I was nobody, right? I didn't even have like I was an individual and I didn't have a big production team or anything like that. But if you look at YouTube today, almost every single product that actually like is doing well like has an entire team behind it, right? You have producers that are actually like filming it, you have writers, you have people that are cutting things together, and like this is not individualism, but it is individualism that was like it was individualism that eventually evolved into somebody having money, and then those people took money and then they invested it in other people who are going to do the grunt work for them, and then they combine all that, because at the end of the day an individual can never accomplish as much as people can as a whole. But we always start at that baseline of individualism, and then that's the problem right there. I think is like what bugs me about it a little bit is like it's never like we are collectively working together. It starts out like we are all going to be fighting to see who's going to have power over the teams of people, right? Because eventually it evolves into teams of people at some point. Eventually it evolves into like, oh, I'm a CEO of a company and we have like 1,000 employees. But it all, at one point, yeah, started with one person, but they all were competing to see who's going to get enough money to create, like to start hiring people to do, the boring work for them. But there's another model where like it could begin as, a group endeavor, right? Like we are all in this together, trying to do what's best for the group. And we don't have that culture, I don't think, in the U.S. And it kind of like goes back to, I mean, I think it's like interesting that you were talking about like how you were like making like a mixtape with like other rappers and basically like sharing that around, because that's very un-American. Like I'm not trying to insult you or anything. It's but that is like it's just like we as Americans are taught to be individualistic, to look out for ourselves and our own interests, and to not really kind of collaborate with other people on the ground level like that. We only collaborate if we can pay other people to collaborate with us, right?
Yeah.
And then because when we can pay people, we can assert the power structure, right? We can assert that I'm up here, everybody else is down here. And we don't have to have it like that, but that's American. Like that's the capitalist mindset that we kind of like. But I think that that's not productive. I don't think that's going to give a better product at the end of the day. But I guess how would you convince people, I guess, to kind of, let's say I'm a rapper, right? I'm a new battle rapper, and why should I collaborate with other people rather than to just look out for my own interest? And I've seen this a lot of times too, where people want me to support them and go out there and like do stuff to support them, but like they're not supporting me, right? Like I've had people tell me like, oh yeah, you need like, I don't want to, go into it, but like, you got to come to like my battle and like, pull up and all that. And we're all going to get together and like, we're going to hype, but nobody comes to my battle. So like, there's this like you want me to do something for you that you're not willing to do for me. You know what I mean? Like, so why should I do that if I know that? If I know that like, I mean, in your case, and I think this is probably true. I'm going back to my own counter arguing my counter arguments, but I'll let you answer.
Um, yeah, it's a hard pitch. It's a hard pitch to convince someone to help without anything in return. And I can't say that I necessarily believe in a karmic alignment. I don't believe in karmic justice necessarily. I don't think I can guarantee in any situation that what good deeds you do and what generous deeds you do will ever come back as a positive.
I mean, I
But
don't think they're guaranteed. I think they're more probable.
I think so. I think they're more probable for sure. But for the sake of the honesty of the pitch, to
Yeah,
say
yeah.
like why you should do it anyway, I'm gonna say I can't guarantee it. But I would say it will always reflect positively. Someone someone who knows, anybody who's seen it, like if you don't do it completely, encrypted person to person private, someone will notice it, someone will see it, it will reflect on your character, and that will make for better connections going forward. As long as people, as long as you keep doing the right thing, people will keep seeing it and people will understand who you are. And that will go one of two ways. People try to take advantage of it, or people will see it for what it is and keep you around and help you. And it will be, symbiosis. You'll both work together. It'll be great. You just have to be very mindful of who you decide to help. You have to be mindful of what you think deserves your push, because there are people I'm pushing to this day who have never and probably will never like try to assist me in any way, but I believe in them so much and I like what they do so much. I'm like, whatever, I don't really need anything back from you. I'd like what you do, keep going. It's not, I don't try to do it transactionally. I think it's just like, if I genuinely believe in it, I'm going to try and push it as far as it can go. And I think everyone should do that for anything they genuinely believe in and genuinely enjoy. As long as you can foster it existing, it will continue to exist. It'll be better for you. It'll be better for them. And people who can see you do things like that, they will also respond positively, and it'll net you. Again, I just say watch It's a Wonderful Life. It's a really helpful movie. I feel like people walk away from it, It's a Wonderful Life, being like, oh, if you wished you were dead, this is how it would impact everybody. No, that's not the point of the movie. The point of this movie is just to help everybody around you. And when the time comes, the family, the family you've built in the village can beat out the big bad. You know what I mean? When you have that sort of grassroots connection with a bunch of people, and you've done nothing but done right by them, even at your expense, and they weren't able to help you right back. You just did it like, hey, I like you, I'll do something good for you. You don't have to give me a thing. You don't have to do a thing for me. People, when the time comes, people will want to do something for you. People will jump at the chance to help you back. Everybody? No, not everybody. But certain people will see it and they'll feel so indebted, and they'll feel so gracious, and they'll just like you enough that they will help you out. It's just, I think, beneficial to be good to others, even with no immediate return, even with no guarantee. I think it's just beneficial for all parties to just do the right thing by people.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think, it's also just like a better, I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie A Beautiful Mind. Like, I always just think about that. There's like a
I want to see
scene.
that.
Yeah, there's a scene there where like there's a bunch of girls and like there's five guys and four girls, and or I think that's what it was. Maybe it was five. I think it was like might have been four guys, four girls.
Okay.
But there's one girl in particular that they're all interested in. Then that's like the one that they said was the best.
Mhm.
And like so the whole idea was basically talking about like capitalism and like how like competition is supposed to breed like the best result. But like if everybody were to compete for this one particular girl, and everybody would basically be stepping on each other's toes, and then they would all just like cancel each other out. The girl's not going to be interested in them because she's going to be put off by the fact that like four different people are all approaching her at once, and so forth. Meanwhile, all of the other girls are also seeing this, and they're seeing that like they all went for this girl, and then once they get rejected, then they're not going to be interested. So the idea that like competition is supposed to be to breed the best possible result, but really the best possible result is if they all collaborate with each other, and they all basically pick one person and then they all, the result is that everybody has a partner, right? And that's a better result than like everybody competing with each other. So I think that, ultimately the idea of people collaborating, the idea of people working with each other always produces a better result than what you can do by yourself. And in terms of like networking, in terms of resources, in terms of everything. I mean, like, so I mean, it's like if we're talking about the battle rap scene or if we're talking about capitalism in general, I think it would be, in everybody's best interest to really try to network more, communicate more, try to, you know, work with each other more, and like you said, like do things that like even if they're not to the benefit of you, do them anyway, just because like and obviously being mindful of like the fact that like if you do it for the wrong person, it's not gonna it might end up hurting you or whatever, but like it's like as long as you're generally around good people and you're doing good things and like that's probably gonna come, it's gonna be, I believe in karma in the sense of like, again, like I said, probability, not guarantee. Like, I don't think that you're guaranteed that if you're a good person, good things are going to happen for you. But I think that, like, if you're a good person in general, good things will probably happen because, people see that you're a good person.
Yeah.
And versus, like, negative karma, if I go up to somebody I don't know and I punch them in the face, like, immediately there's a higher probability that I'm going to get hit back, right? Like, it's not karma. It's just, like, that's reactionary, like, to behavior, right?
Exactly. Completely.
But yeah, I don't know if you wanted to elaborate on that, but if not, we can wrap it up.
Wait. That was crazy. I had no idea. I unplugged my charger at some point during that. This computer I'm using is pretty old. It needs to be plugged in or else it dies pretty fast. What I was gonna say, as a final note, is in a society that I think is getting increasingly more capitalistic and increasingly more desperate, and people are, the wealth disparity is getting greater. People seem to be struggling in new ways, inflation or whatever, job market problems, unemployment, et cetera, et cetera. A bunch of problems that I've seen people talk about back to back to back, like in quicker succession than ever. People saying it's a recession, people saying it's a depression, pretty consistently for the past few years. I think it would really be best for us as people to treat each other with kindness and pay it forward as often as possible and just help people out in whatever way they need. It sucks to see desperation, and you can't help everybody. That's the other thing. You can't help everybody, but when you can help, I implore people to help, just because it's so hard to do it all by yourself. And I know there is a lot of rhetoric about like, you can't do it by yourself. It's okay to ask for help. I don't know if everybody really takes that fully to heart. I feel like a lot of people still want to, pull themselves up by the bootstraps, do it themselves.
I think there are some people that might even feel ashamed to ask for help, and I feel like that sometimes myself, right? Like,
same, absolutely the same. I feel exactly the same way. Because there's a level of pride you have to sort of part ways with when you have people help you. And I get that. I think it's worth it to, swallow the pride, just be like, hey, I need help. I think it'll benefit everybody. And I think one thing people don't really realize about that is that I think a lot of people love to help. I think a lot of people love to have a purpose and be able to offer something to somebody. So I think as much as one might hate to ask for help, you have to realize that a lot of people are so ready to be like, oh yeah, I'm good at this. I know how to do this. I know how to be helpful. I'm useful. I think especially for people who have like something like depression, I think a lot of people with depression feel useless, pointless. They could be removed from this earth and nothing would change, right? I think when you ask somebody for help, it gives them purpose. It's like, oh man, I do serve a purpose. I am here for something. I am here for someone. Because I know a lot of people say like with the talks around depression is like you are loved, and it's like for me, I've been very depressed in my life. I've been very, very depressed. I've had depression. I've had medication for depression. Being loved was never my issue personally. Not to be brag. I'm charismatic and fun and all that. That's not what I mean. What I mean is being loved was not ever my goal. I just felt like I couldn't accomplish things, or I wasn't, good enough to do something. I was, I felt more like a failure rather than unloved. And so, being able to help people, having people say to me personally, it's like, hey, you inspired me. You really helped me do this. I can't thank you enough, blah, blah, blah. Things like that. That makes me feel like, I should keep going another day. I might be able to help somebody else. So at every level, I just think being a good person and paying it forward is good. And I think just for specifically for battle rappers, musicians, artists, I think I think one of the most important things about art is the human experience. And I think if you can talk with other humans and be close with other humans and experience more in life, greater art will come of it. And if you have those good relationships with other people, not only will better art come of it, more opportunities will come of it, because I think the hard work goes more into building a community and building a sense of shared identity, that will make everything that you touch and everything that you do improve. That's why I still do the City Litter Cyphers. It used to be just three of us rapping in the winter. Um, you know, um, it was me, my friend Morris, my friend Roop, and sometimes my friend Will. We would just be rapping under the Washington Square Park arch, and we rapped there for 2 hours. It would just be us. Anybody could come through and walk and start rapping with us, and people would. But as the weather got colder, the regular numbers were, at most we'd have 5 people. At the least, we'd have 2. And now the City Litter Ciphers, in the cold weather, the lowest we have is 6 and the highest we have is 10. As the weather gets better, we start a cipher with maybe 7 people, and we end the cipher with 30, 40 people all in a circle rapping, having a good time. And we all know each other. We know each other's names. We support each other's art. We have multiple different talents. We were able to throw a compliment battle card because we had videographers in City Litter. We had a bunch of rappers here. We've done jam sessions because we have multi-instrumentalists. We've just building community, talking with people, engaging in art with people. Just as long as you're good to others, the goodness comes back. It's not always quick. It's not always material. And it's not always. Sometimes it doesn't happen. That's just true. But like you said, the odds increase greatly. The probability of something coming back to you in a positive light, someone helping you back, yada yada, it's so much more likely if you just sort of are kind and you treat people with kindness and you live a life that is, it doesn't have to be overtly generous, but it has to be caring. I think that's the crux of it.
Right. Man, I wish I was out there with in New York with y'all. There's so much. I would love to be part of the battle rap scene and shit a lot more, especially I battle and everything, but also that the ciphers and shit. There's not a lot of that, I think, at least, or if there is, I'm not aware of where it is. But yeah, I mean, no, I mean, I appreciate all that. And I also agree with what you were saying about feeling like having a purpose, and that's kind of where I've been mentally lately in the last year or so. Just I'm not I don't know what I am. I don't know if the word is I don't think the word is depressed, because I don't feel like I'm depressed, but I also just feel I am looking for purpose and stuff. And so I find myself trying to figure out what is it for me that will drive me to something I'm good at, that I feel passionate about and want to commit myself to, and be able to I mean I have certain talents and things that I'm good at, and how can I be motivated to use those to do something positive, and then I feel I feel like if I can occupy my time with that, I spend less time in my head. I spend less time going down rabbit holes of whatever anxiety, whatever the right word is, and then and also just getting a sense of maybe wholeness of okay, I did a thing, and that was more meaningful than just did I put out a TikTok that got 1 million views or whatever. It's more so what am I actually doing to affect the lives of others, and I think. I remember seeing it was a meme or whatever. I feel like today, and our generation, maybe your generation more than mine, I feel like has lost the idea of hobbies, right? Everything now has
Yeah.
to be a side hustle. Everything has to be like, how do I make money off of this? How do I like, whereas, back in the day, you could just say, I like art and I like to draw some shit. It doesn't have to be like, something that you turn into, you know, uh,
Yeah.
a business, right? Like, which ends up like watering down the art anyway. And yeah.
I completely agree. I try to maintain, um, hobbies and fun. Like I monetize a lot of stuff. When I can. I do monetize freestyling. I freestyle on TikTok Live, and I'll just go and see what gifts I can get. Gifts, as they're called. But City Litter, we don't busk. City Litter, we just host a cipher. We rap. We have fun together. I go to jam sessions where we just make art. There's no money to be made in doing jam sessions. Um, there are connections to be gained through it, but again, I don't look at it that way, and I implore people to not look at things like that. I hate the word networking, because I really believe that friendships are better than creating a network.
Right.
Because I think people will.
I mean, yeah, even that word immediately, like there's a business connotation with it. Like it's not
Exactly.
transactional, right? It's not genuine.
Yeah, so like when I go to jam sessions, I do hope to make good friends, and I mean the real goal is just to make good music together. Even if it's not good, make something that changes my perception of what can be made in improvisational art. I just I want something that'll really move me, and I think when you do something like that, naturally you connect with people. I forgot who I was talking about this with. But like even in rap battles, you're making a piece of art with someone. You're kind of connected to the person that you do the battle with. Just off of that alone, there's a very unique connection you share with that person. And I know it starts to get muddy when you do so many different battles, but there's still something to be said about that. If you put you and a former opponent in a room, it's like, yeah, we did do that together.
Yeah.
We both have this piece of art that we've done together, and that's sort of.
I feel like there's always, even if you didn't know that person before that battle, there's, some like unspoken level of like, I don't know. There's a connection there, I feel like, or at least in
Absolutely.
my mind.
Absolutely. It's
And,
so
and
cool.
yeah, it's a weird sport, right? Like, because it's like we are competing against each other, but then like after the battle, then it's just like, okay, wait, yeah. I mean, there's, it's like every battle is different. Some people go into it and they genuinely dislike each other.
Yep.
Other people, are best friends and they still have to like insult each other and shit. So
Yeah.
it's that's what I love it. Like it's like it's so unique and different.
Yeah, I really appreciate that element of it, but I think in that regard, it's like, again, it's like I'm not going to a battle to network, right? I don't consider me rapping with the person a networking move. I just consider it's like we're making art together. If we connect, if you want to talk later, we can. We already have the greatest icebreaker of all time, like 3 verses each, and so. I think just with stuff like that, yeah, it's hard to maintain hobbies. I still have them. I try to do a million things, and a lot of things I can't monetize. I'm not good enough of a beatboxer to monetize that. And even if it's not about good enough, I don't have like a singer to beatbox for. You know what I'm saying? It's just other elements that prevent me from being a professional beatboxer. I juggle. I have no idea how to monetize juggling. I love doing it. I love to juggle, but I cannot monetize it. Although
You need to juggle while breakdancing while beatboxing. I think
exactly, yeah. I was gonna do that at a talent contest. I saw a talent show somewhere, and I scanned the QR code and joined the particle. I didn't go because I had a concert that day, but I was gonna freestyle while juggling. They only give people 15 seconds, so I was like, "Somebody write 3 words quickly," and I was just gonna freestyle and juggle, see if I could win. I think the prize was 25 cents. But it's just I do still try to make have fun in my life, find hobbies without the fear of like I'm wasting my time, I'm not monetizing, because I also do believe that just doing anything, just living more is valuable experience. Like I had my girlfriend went to Australia and brought me a boomerang back. We weren't partners at the time, but by the time she came back, soon after she came back, we were partners, and she gave me a boomerang from that trip. And so during lockdown, when all the parks were completely empty, I would practice boomeranging. There's no money in that. But it's valuable experience, because like recently, this is like saying it out loud sounds crazy. So I had minor boomerang experience due to 2020. I go to a monster truck show a few weeks ago. There's a guy in the pit of the monster truck thing throwing a boomerang around while in between the main shows. And it's like all of a sudden I have something I can talk about with people. It's like, hey, him catching that is really impressive because I've thrown a boomerang. It's almost impossible to catch a boomerang. I never succeeded. Months of doing it. I never caught one of my own throws. Came close, but never caught one. Very difficult to do. And it's just like, that's just me living. There's no monetary gain. And like boomeranging isn't even a hobby I still have. But it's like, just like, I think living and experiencing can make living and experiencing easier going forward. The more you do, the more people you can talk to, the more the world opens up for you. So I do see a lot of value in hobbies that you can't monetize. It's just, it makes the breadth of experiences you can have in life that much broader.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So, I mean, we've been running for a minute. I'll wrap this up. Do you have anything that you're trying to promote? I probably should have done that at the beginning, but I'm going to drop some description, like links and stuff in the description. I got your TikTok. I'll reach out to you and see if there's any other stuff like the Cypher and stuff. I don't know if you got links for that, but
Sure.
anything you want to promote in particular?
Yeah, I'm Archduke Redcat. I battle on iBattle TV almost exclusively. Hope that whoever sees this sees one of my battles. My TikTok, of course, is Chase FQ. FQ standing for Fun Queens because that's where I'm from. I do fun TikTok. I'm sick right now, so it's gonna be a minute before I make another TikTok. But yeah, I've got TikToks. I have the City Litter Cyphers. We are at Astor Place in Manhattan from 5 to 8 every Friday. Come and see some of the best and worst freestyles of all time. Just the most fun freestylers in the world, I believe. I have music coming out, archdukeredcat.bandcamp.com if you want to really, really support it. But I'm Archduke Redcat on all streaming services, Spotify, Tidal, Pandora, whatever you want. I'm planning to make a lot more music this year. I tried to do that last year, and then I started battling again. And now I'm in a tournament, so silly me. But
You've gotten really far. Like you're like what, maybe 2 wins away from 5K?
Yeah, darn near. Yeah, I'm in the final 8 of.
And I guarantee you, Randy's gonna have some bars about you, being a juggling and throwing a boomerang. So
oh yeah,
get your rebuttals on deck.
He can have that. He can have that. But yeah, I guess that's all I really want to plug. City Litter is the people I represent because we make the city litter. I'm a battler. If you need me to freestyle about something, hit me up. I'll do it. Heck yeah.
All right, fire. Thank you so much for taking your time out and doing this interview and everything. I'm grateful and appreciative of you as a whole.
I appreciate that, man. You're a great dude. I'd be happy to do like a million more of these whenever you need me.
I mean, for sure, definitely down the road. But yeah, I'll definitely be in touch. We're always in the same circle. So
absolutely.
all right, see you, bro.
See you, man. Thank you.